Greetings and welcome to the first session on Qualitative Data Analysis series. My name is Dr. Tony Majila, and I work as a research training officer in the School of Interdisciplinary Research and Graduate Studies in the College of Graduate Studies at UNISA. We welcome you to these foundational sessions, one of three on qualitative data analysis. And I will be guiding you through this series of workshops designed to build your qualitative research skills. Now, let's first start with defining and giving a purpose of qualitative research. Qualitative research, it is a fundamental about meaning making. So it seeks to understand the how and the why of human experiences, and not just the what or how many. So this methodological approach values depth over breadth and context over generalization. And we can see Denzel and Lincoln defining it as a research methodology focused on understanding human behavior, experiences, and perspectives in their natural settings. And it is aimed at exploring, describing, and interpreting social phenomena, cultural practices, as well as the individual experiences in an in-depth and holistical way. So the purpose is to gain insights into how people make sense of their world, how people interpret their experiences, and construct their realities. Now, as part of introduction, there is this introductory note, the essence of data analysis in research. We can see that data analysis is a very crucial component of the research projects, which serves as that bridge between the raw data that you collected, it may be from interviews, focus groups, and the meaningful insight. After all, the purpose of doing research is to create new information, to develop these new epistemologies. And it is through data analysis that we see those information, that new information coming in. So it is a very crucial component of the research process. And I know that it is being underestimated. But at its core, it is systematic, and it can help you to describe, illustrate, condense all the data that you have collected. So this process involves making sense of the text, the images, moving deeper into understanding, moving away from the raw data, but then into understanding and representing and interpreting the meaning behind the data that you have collected. And it's very important. Is very important because this is where we see how it transforms raw data into this valuable information, the epistemologies that we are talking about. And through data analysis, we see this pattern, identification. Whether you're doing thematic analysis, content analysis, grounded theory, through this analysis, we can identify the patterns, the trends, and the relationships within the data that may not be apparent. And using Atlas TI, it is a doable exercise to establish or develop this relationship between the codes. So for those who are doing grounded theory, it is through analysis where you can see the building blocks of the theory that you are developing. And in terms of validity and reliability, in qualitative, we talk about trustworthiness of data, and it does enhance the research rigor of your findings to ensure that conclusions are grounded in a systematic way. In managing complex data, yes, we are living in the era of big data and solving very complex societal issues. And through data analysis using Atlas TI, it will help you to manage these large volumes of information and make sense of it, especially those who are using secondary data. It can be meta-analysis or content analysis. And for communicating your findings, for those who are doing thesis dissertations, or even writing an article, it is easy to develop, the networks diagrams that will enhance the visualization that can be easily read by the wider audience. So I also want us to place qualitative data analysis under the philosophical foundation and assumptions by addressing these ontological assumptions. So there is this assumptions that qualitative data analysis software can analyze data for us. And I'm saying, yes, it can, but to a lesser extent. Even if when we are using these AI tools, you will see it will generate the codes for you. It will generate the code categories, but that's where it mostly ends. You won't go into themes. You won't go into advanced analysis. And I am saying there are AI functionalities within Atlas TI, and it is a safe software to use to analyze data. A lot of the countries in the global north are already using it, applying it, and we are saying as UNISA, we are here to make sure that you are competent and can match your counterparts, in the global north. Of course, we will teach you how to use and apply them responsibly. These are some of the AI coding in Atlas TI, the conversational AI, which is like a chatbot. So wherever you are analyzing a document or a transcript, you can ask it questions and it will respond. There are AI summaries which can play a role in the first step of familiarizing yourself with the data. We also have AI coding and intentional coding. So they're both the same, but then intentional coding is where now you give it a context and it will code in the context of your study. Maybe you might give it a title of your study or your research questions or objectives. And we will explore those because it might help some of you. Now, I've projected the key characteristics of qualitative data, and these characteristics distinguish qualitative data from quantitative data. They highlight why qualitative approaches requires different analytical methods and tools. And the context-rich nature of qualitative data, which provides depth, but also creates complexities in analysis. So in qualitative data, we always talk about rich and detailed data. Text-based, which is often because we can analyze audio, videos, images, and so on. Naturalistics, yes, even when you are doing interviews, you interview people in their natural environments and not controlled environments like the labs and so on. Mostly inductive, but you can also analyze the deductively, especially those who are doing or rather focusing on secondary data. So you will have some preconceived or prior codes coming from your research questions and literature review. And there's also hybrid, a mixture of the two. But for those who are exploring the experiences and so forth, they always go for inductive. Everything is coming out from the data that they have collected itself. Interpretive, yes. And as a researcher, you are always involved in this research process. In the methodology chapter, you will have a section on the philosophical foundations and the research paradigm. So if you are adopting an interpretive stance with the lenses, it also gives you a leeway on you interpreting the data itself. So as a qualitative researcher, you are always involved in the qualitative data analysis. And these are the common types of qualitative data that will be used in our exercises throughout this workshop series. And I know that many of you are also using interview transcripts, the field notes, observation list, open-ended surveys, personal narratives and diaries, audios or videos from focus groups, and those in media studies, they might interpret some videos from the news or movies and so on. So each type requires specific approaches to analysis, which we'll explore in later sessions, including how to manage them effectively in Atlas TI. Now, let's also look at these fundamentals of qualitative data analysis. It is iterative process, and this is central to qualitative analysis. So unlike quantitative analysis, which often follows a linear path, in qualitative, this process involves continuous movement between these steps. So we're going back and forth, back and forth. And you, as a researcher, you need to frequently revisit earlier stages as and when new site emerges. For example, especially in the discussion and analysis, you might need to go back, beef up your literature review. After you have presented your findings, you need to go back to your methodology chapter under data analysis and update the number of codes that came up and so forth. So we are moving back and forth, and this assists us to have that golden thread in our manuscript. So from data collection, collecting qualitative data organization, preparing your data for analysis, very important. So after you have collected data, you need to organize your data. How are you organizing your data? You need to transcribe, meaning convert the audio to text. And from there, you need to do member checking to make sure that the interview was a true reflection. Many novice researchers don't pay attention to transcription. So it is very important to invest in transcription, because these are the quotations that you will use in presenting your findings. At times, you see novice researchers using transcripts from MS Teams and Zoom, and when they are copying those quotations, sometimes they cannot understand them. So that is not a good practice, because depending on the accent, it will give you 40 to 60% correctness. So it is very important to do it yourself. But if you can't, I suggest that you can outsource these services, because transcription is very important. And after you've transcribed, make sure that you go through the transcription, make sure that the names of our participants are not appearing in your transcript. This responds to your ethical considerations in protecting your participants. So issues of confidentiality, they should play a role here. And also, when you rename your participants, the documents, make sure that you use the pseudos like participant 1, participant 2, and so on. And data familiarization, you need to read those transcripts, load them into Atlas, and start the coding. Coding is all about assigning labels to the segments in your transcripts. And from there, you will see the patterns that are coming up. And from there, the themes will emerge. And from there, it will be for you to interpret the data, finding those commonalities, the similarities between your participants, the differences between your participants, any contradictions that are there, and also alignment with the literature, checking parts of or rather the themes that are appearing in the literature and how they're appearing. So your data, is it confirming the literature or disputing the literature or contradicting the literature? And you need to see in which areas is it closing those gaps that we've identified in the literature. Same applies to theoretical framework. And from there, it will be easy for you to review this, and address the implication of your study, how this literature review and the analyzed data is helping you to address the problem statement that you have mentioned in your first chapter, how it's helping you to respond to your research questions, and how it's helping you to talk to the realization of your objectives. So this is comparison of qualitative and quantitative approaches, and these approaches answer different types of questions and shouldn't be judged by each other's standards. So qualitative research shouldn't be evaluated by quantitative criteria like sample size or any other component. So each approach has its own standards of quality and rigor. I want to focus on the role of a researcher. So as a qualitative researcher, you are an integral part of analysis process. Your positionality is acknowledged. Hence, I was saying in the paradigm, if you use interpretivism, you need to come in and interpret freely so, because we know your position, unlike in the quantitative. The type of data that we analyze is mostly non-numerical text, images, audio, and videos. And the research approach, often inductive. I've talked at length about how we also accommodate deductive and hybrid. The sampling is straightforward. In qualitative, we have our own sampling techniques. Data collection, we collect data through interviews, focus group observation, but also secondary data, like for those who are doing meta-analysis study and so on. The analysis techniques, there are a lot of them. I'll touch a bit on them, but then what is central to all of them is the coding. So coding is at the core of qualitative research, and it takes time. You need to invest a lot of time into coding. We are not generalizing, unlike in quantitative, where the results need to be generalized to larger population. That is why the questionnaires, when you're doing the questionnaires, you need to find as many participants as you can so that you can generalize these findings. But for us in qualitative, we are looking for understanding, those specific context. And even in the presentation of the findings, you can see in qualitative, there are this rich description, the themes, narrative with codes and so on compared to the quantitative. So while the software can dramatically improve efficiency and rigor, it does not do the analysis for you. Your critical thinking, your interpretive skills, your methodological understanding remain essential. Atlas TI, it's a powerful assistant. You need to treat it like that, your research assistant. And there's no way it can replace you as a researcher. So there are those who prefer manual analysis because they are seeing it's hands-on, they can immerse themselves, but you can only do it for smaller data set. You can do it for larger data set, but it will take time. In terms of the visual process, you can see there are colors there on the sticky notes. These things are possible in Atlas TI, the color coding and the grouping and so on, and it does it better than the manual coding. So there are advantages of Atlas TI in terms of organization of larger data set, the easy retrieval, the visualization, and exploring these relationships. And that is why I was saying there are students who publish from their M&D project, and at times it is difficult when you want to look only at your dissertation, because in a dissertation you won't present all the findings. But then if you have Atlas TI file, you can go back, revisit it, and you will find everything. So there are some advantages in doing this. Moreover, collaborative features. So if you are a team writing an article or you are working with a supervisor, you can be involved in one project. So a supervisor can see your progress, what you are doing, and advise accordingly. There are also automated functions for coding. So if you code and you're not sure, you can ask Atlas just to double check for you and so on. But I must emphasize that Atlas TI is just a tool to support your analysis, not a replacement for analytical thinking. And you need to, as a researcher, engage deeply with the data and make interpretive decisions. So these are some of the qualitative data analysis techniques, approaches. These are the commonly used frameworks to qualitative data analysis. And each has its own philosophical underpinnings, its own procedures, its own appropriate applications. So your choice is depending on your research questions, the theoretical framework, and methodological positioning. We have thematic, content, discourse, grounded theory, phenomenology, ethnography, case study, and many, many, many more. So the important thing is that when you are using thematic, you need to know why you are using it. You need to have a framework for using thematic. And there is one by Brown and Clark where they outline this process that first you need to familiarize yourself with the data, generate codes, search for themes, review themes, define themes, and produce report. So in the methodology chapter under data analysis, this is what we want to see, the process. Before we can even see your presentation of the findings, we need to see this process. And we need to see how you have applied this process, especially in PhD application. And there are other two frameworks in thematic analysis. So Brown and Log is one of them. And we will zoom into them when we are doing the thematic analysis session. Same goes to content analysis, narrative analysis, discourse, grounded theory, and phenomenology. If you're doing phenomenology, make sure you know if you will analyze descriptively or interpretively. You may go on and read work by Smith and Colazzi. So you can see how important is the process. You need to justify that. These are the best practices which will enhance the quality, the rigor, and trustworthiness of your qualitative analysis. And they apply whether you are working manually or with the software. Though through Atlas TI, it makes many of them easier for you to implement systematically. Like the last but one bullet, maintain a detailed audit trail of your analysis. So if you're using Atlas TI, you will easily retrieve a report that will show you how you've coded, how many codes were matched, and the relationships and so on. So you can see how it is enhancing that trustworthiness, the research rigor. So other those things that you need to do, the best practice is to familiarize yourself deeply with the data by listening to the recordings, reading the transcripts multiple times. And it is always important to develop that clear and consistent coding scheme aligned with your research questions. Using memo to record the thoughts. So when you are in the field, you need to record the reflections and everything. And these reflections, you can put them into Atlas so that each and every aspect of your data collection is in Atlas. Always seek feedback from your supervisor. Through all the stages, you need to talk to your supervisor, your participants, or aspects to enhance credibility. So even if you are outsourcing the services, make sure that you seek feedback and understand each and every process. The don'ts, so these are the pitfalls that can compromise the quality and credibility of the qualitative analysis. So being aware of them will help you to develop a good analytical habit from the beginning. And remember that qualitative analysis is about depth and meaning and not quantity or speed. That is why you don't have to rush the analytic process because it takes time for you to immerse yourself in the data. So for those who are doing proposal, make sure that you allocate more time into data analysis section. And don't ignore the data that doesn't fit with the initial codes. So those outliers, make sure that you still include them. You will never know how they might align with your literature review. And don't overstate or generalize the findings beyond the scope of data. So sometimes you see researchers using one quotation multiple times, so don't overstate that. It's not a good practice. And don't forget to consider the context and limitation of your data. So these common mistakes typically arise from inexperience with qualitative methods or from trying to apply quantitative thinking to qualitative data. And awareness of these pitfalls is the first step towards avoiding them in your own research. So when you are analyzing manually, which we discourage now, you need to check the consistency of your coding across the dataset. So what do we mean by this? So you might find that one transcript, it has 5 codes. The second transcript, it has 100 codes. So it is inconsistency. And this can disadvantage you when you are talking about data saturation. Also, overlooking context in favor of the individual codes. We've talked about that sometimes you focus on this one individual and use their codes over and over and over. And failing to identify overarching patterns. You need to know how you identify these patterns. How do you develop these themes? And forcing data into preconceived category. Yes, sometimes you want the study to go your own way and force the data to go a certain direction. So those are some of the common mistakes. And for those who are using software, they sometimes over rely on the software to do their analysis. So this software specific pitfalls typically involves either expecting too much from Atlas or not leveraging its features effectively. But always remember that this software is there to support your analytical thinking. It doesn't replace it. And learning to use Atlas TI effectively, it takes time and practice. But then with this workshop, we will address that. Neglecting data preparation before importing, we talk about how you need to prepare data before you load those transcripts into Atlas TI. Name them correctly, making sure that the names of participants are not in the transcript as part of your ethical clearance. Underutilizing software features, yes. Sometimes you might get excited, use AI features to code and use code categories and present your findings, but it ends there. But there are a lot of tools that can help you to deeply analyze and respond to that discussion and analysis section as well. And losing sight of research questions while using the software, yes, some novice researchers get excited and forget what they are researching about. So developing a clear analysis plan before you begin data collection, it will help you to strengthen this entire research process. So it helps you to stay focused on your research questions and ensures that there is this methodological consistency. So it also makes your analysis process more efficient and systematic. So this data analysis plan, it's detailed, it's outlining the steps, the methods, procedures for analyzing research data. It will help you and guide you with the research process from collection to interpretation. So before data collection, it will give you guidance on how to collect data, who to collect data from. After you've collected, you transcribe, you do member checking, the framework of analysis, and all the processes up until you present your findings and provide that discussion and analysis. And by having that, it will ensure that you address this methodological rigor and credibility of findings. Because in qualitative studies, it is mostly a problem showing the trustworthiness of data. But with data analysis plan, you will be able to address those pitfalls. And it will help you to facilitate efficient data management and organization. It will enhance transparency and potential reportability. But most of all, it will also guide data interpretation and reporting, because most of the researchers, they will stop at presenting their findings. But data analysis goes beyond that. You need to interpret. We need to see those similarities, the differences between the participants, between the documents. We need to see that alignment with the literature. and the theoretical framework. We need to see the implication of your findings, how data analysis has assisted you to solve the problem that you have stated in your introduction chapter. We need to see how data analysis has helped you to respond to your research questions. We need to see how data analysis has helped you to realize the research objectives. So this is where I will end